Okay, so third grade, we're continuing on with our prefixes. Look at all of the prefixes we've already covered. Have you remembered them? Not, unhappy. Dislike, you do not like something. Non-stop, it will not stop. Illegal, not legal. Impolite, not polite. Inconsiderate, not considerate, the opposite of being considerate. Which means again, to reheat something. You need to heat it up again. Pre is the prefix for before, pre-game. This was before the game, before the game. Game is your base word or root word, before the game. So now we're going to learn another prefix, and it is miss. Only one S. Only one S. It's not like the miss the word like I miss you, which has two S's. This one only has one miss. This means wrong or wrongly or bad. Miss. Can you think of any word that has a prefix of miss, which would mean wrongly or bad? What about this word? Do you know what that word is? What's your base word? I see my prefix. Miss. Behave. Behave. If you misbehave, you behave wrongly. You behave in a poor manner. You don't behave well. You're bad. You're misbehaving. So miss means wrongly or bad. Misbehave. What about this word? Do you know that word? This one actually even has a suffix. Your base word, your prefix. Mismatched. If something is mismatched, usually socks are mismatched. That means they're matched wrong. They're not matching. They're matched wrong. You have two wrong socks. So they're mismatched. If something is mismatched, it means it's not matched properly. You can mistrust. If you mistrust something, you don't trust it because it's not trustworthy. You don't trust it. So you might say, well, Mrs. D, that's not. Well, if something's wrong, it's not right. Right? So I don't trust something. I have mistrust. Or you can also hear distrust. That's kind of tricky. Miss means wrongly or not right. Misbehave, mismatched. Not matched properly or misbehaving. Okay, third grade, we are continuing on. Let's see if that, I think when I stand behind it, it gets confused. All right, so a new prefix. Not, opposite, undis, non, ill, im, in. Again, before pre, wrongly, miss. Now we have another one, and this prefix is d. And this means opposite of. So D means opposite of. Have you heard a word that has the prefix D? What if your mom has some chicken in the freezer and she wants to cook it for dinner? She might put it on the counter to defrost it. She doesn't want it frosted. She doesn't want it frozen. She wants it the opposite of frozen. She wants to take it out of the freezer. She wants to defrost it. So if you I'm not talking about frosting on a cake. I'm talking about frost being like freezer frost, right? So that's one of them. What if you have something in code, right? A lot of times people want to decode. They don't want to put it in a code so that it's not easily read. They want to do the opposite. They want to take it out of the code so that they can read it. They want to decode it. They want to decode it. What if you have a ball, a basketball outside, and it's not bouncing? Why? Because it's deflated. It's not inflated, it's deflate. It's the opposite of. You want to take the air out of it. And you might say, flate? Huh. Is that a word, Mrs. Duskalakis? These are sometimes your root words and base words are words that come from like Latin that might not make sense on their own, but we just know that deflate is the opposite of inflate. Same thing with decline. If something is declining, it goes down. So a decline is you're going down, which is opposite of an incline. An incline goes up. When you inflate a ball, it gets bigger. When you deflate something, it gets smaller, right? Or the air goes out. When you decline, you go downhill. So D, new suffix, opposite of. Decode, take something out of code. Defrost, take it out of being in the freezer. D, the opposite of. It's a lot, third grade. Pre, de, re, miss, ill, im, in, non. Okay, so third grade, we've been talking about all of these prefixes. We have 2 more to go. These aren't as common, but you still need to know what they mean. Trans, which means across. So in my class, we've been talking about the Transcontinental Railroad. So when you're talking about transcontinental, you are talking about continent. AL is actually considered a suffix, but you don't learn that suffix in third grade. You're saying you want to go across the continent. The Transcontinental Railroad went all the way across our country, the North American continent, from west coast to east coast. So it was called transcontinental. Sometimes you hear about a transverse muscle. A transverse muscle means it goes all the way across. So trans means across. Sometimes you might take a transatlantic flight. Transatlantic. If Sid were to go visit his dad's parents in India, he would have to take a transatlantic flight. He would go across the Atlantic Ocean. That's called transatlantic. And then the last prefix we're going to talk about is sub, and that means under. So can you think of a word that has sub in it as a prefix? How about this? Now remember, marine has to do with ocean life, so sub would be under the ocean. Think about what submarines do. Submarines go under the ocean. That's why they're called submarine, under the ocean. We've also talked about in my class about subways as a means, as a mode of transportation. Oh, look at that. Transportation. What? If you transport, you go across, right? So transportation, you go across someplace. When you're transported, you take someone across an area. Subway, it's a way to go under, right? A subway is like a little rail car that goes under the ground. That's why it's called a subway. Third grade, these are all of the prefixes that you need to know as a third grader. These are the most common. However, you may come across a word with trans or sub or d or miss. So you have to know those as well. Any questions about prefixes, make sure you see your teacher. Good job, third grade.